Welcome to your most favorite channel, Heartbeat. This channel is mainly meant for MBBS students and medical professionals. My name is Dr. Amrit Kejriwal, and I am teaching mainly general medicine and applied medicine. As it is said, I learnt a lot from my teachers. I learnt a bit more from my colleagues, but the most I learned from my students. And I'm still learning, and I still consider myself to be a student of medicine. Today we will be learning poisoning. Definition: poisoning refers to the development of dose-related adverse effects following exposure to chemicals, drugs, or other xenobiotics. The most important word in this is dose dependent. The same poison, when given in less dose, may not be poison. For example, if we take a tablet of a sedative, a single tablet may not be considered as poison. But if we take multiple tablets, more than 20, 30, it may be considered as poison. There is a therapeutic dose for every poison also. Many of the homeopathy pharmacy, the people prescribe aconite, which is known as Mita Zahar in India and in medical literature in the forensic book. So it is basically, for our purpose, it is a poison, but given in small doses, it is said to get rid of fever. Micro doses. Results may vary from person to person. The same poison may cause a different effect in a different individuals due to genetic polymorphism. Enzyme induction or inhibition in presence of other xenobiotics. Some patients are taking some drugs and the enzymes may get induced or inhibited, which may lead to increased or decreased side effects of the poison. Acquired tolerance. These people are usually having small doses of the poison very since long times, and they develop tolerance to great amounts of same poison. For example, if a person takes alcohol suddenly one day, then it get a very high level and he may develop toxicity. But whereas others people who are taking alcohol regularly, they may have acquired tolerance. There can be local effects, there can be systemic effects. Local effects will be seen on the skin, eyes and lungs, where the absorption. Skin is contact dermatitis or chemical burns, eyes when the chemical goes into the eyes, and lungs by inhalation. Most commonly which we can see is by the toxic produced by inhalants, muscular repellents and so. They can also cause poisoning by inhalation. While patients who like carbon monoxide, the route is by lungs. Coming to the systemic. The manifestations of systemic vary from person to person depending upon the route of administration, physical and chemical properties. Now, many of the poisons are impure and the physical and chemical properties are diluted. Mechanism of action of the poison. Severity. Severity depends on the functional reserve of the individual or organ, age, and coexisting illness. So, a person will be able to have a good reserve and be able to detoxify the poison. Age, very old and very young will be more susceptible. Coexisting illnesses such as liver failure or renal failure may cause decreased catabolism of the drug and will increase the half-life of the drug. It can be accidental poisoning, it can be suicidal, or it can be homicidal. Coming to the accidental poisonings, it usually occurs at home and usually a single agent is taken. More common in children, they take medicines which belong to the parents or grandparents. Usually there is no minor or no toxicity and involvement of pharmaceuticals and medicines which are there, it is like that. There are unintentional exposures also. Improper use of chemicals at work, label misreading, product mislabeling. The lab person, he doesn't misreads, he labels a product wrong. For example, in a bottle of spirit labeled as spirit, somebody keeps a disinfectant. Mistaken identification of unknown chemicals, Uninformed self-medication. Patient takes medicines by self and it does not know the side effects. And dosing errors by medical personnel or elderly. And of course, intentional exposure is deliberate self-harm. Most of the patients that come to us are usually of intentional exposure. Now when the patient comes, you have to take the history. In the history, you have to ask the time, at what time he has come, the route, whether he is taken orally or cutaneous, duration, and circumstances, why he took the medicine, whether there was any problem at home or failed in exam or some love affair gone wrong. We have to find out the location, surrounding events, and intent. Intent mainly goes suicidal, accidental, or homicidal. Name and amount of each drugs and chemical involved. So many of the people, they take multiple drugs, especially when it is suicidal intent. They'll take 10 tablets of a sedative, 5 samples of tablets of an anti-allergic, and time of onset and nature of severity of each symptom. So when the patient comes to us, there are multiple symptoms. So we have to document each and every symptom, time of onset, nature and severity of each symptom, time and type of first aid provided, medical and psychiatry history. This is very important. There are people who have got history of recurrent suicidal attempts. Coming more for the history, if there are foreigners coming, look for medical packing in their private parts. Questions the family, friends, paramedics, police and other physicians. Some patients are brought from home and have accompanied by physicians. Patient's hobbies, habits, behavioral changes, available medication and antecedent events. These are all to be taken in the history. Examine the clothes, belongings and place of discovery. Examination of the patient. Look for the vital signs. Pulse, BP, respiratory rate, temperature, neurological status. Now coming to the neurological status, you have to examine for trauma and underlying disease, look for neuromuscular abnormalities, and examine the eye, look at for nystagmus, pupils and the activities. Some poisons cause miosis, some causes myopic pupils. In the neuromuscular abnormalities, you have to look for dyskinesias, dystonias, fasciculations, myoclonus, rigidity and tremors. Examine the abdomen, look for the bowel activity, whether it is paralytic ileus or not, and look for the bladder size to see whether there is retention of urine or not. Look for the skins for burns, bullae, color, warmth, moisture, pressure sores and puncture marks. Usually the right-handed people have a puncture mark on the left and the left-handed people may have a puncture mark on the right. If the history is unclear, examine all the orifices. This is a basic guideline. Physiological stimulation. The patients can be classified in different types. You have grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4. Anxious, irritable, vital signs normal, diaphoresis, flushing, mydriasis and hyperreflexia are present sometimes in grade 1. Grade 2, the patient may be agitated, confused or hallucinations but can converse and follow commands. Vital signs are mildly or moderately increased. Grade 3 is delirious, unintelligible speech, uncontrollable motor hyperactivity, moderately to markedly increased vital signs and tachyarrhythmias are possible in grade 3. And grade 4 is when the patient is comatose, seizures or has cardiovascular collapse. Physiological depression. Again, these are classified into 4 different types. Awake, lethargic or sleeping, but can be arousable voice or stimulation and able to converse and follow commands and may be confused. Grade 2, he responds to pain but not voice, can vocalize but not converse. Spontaneous motor activity is present and brain stem reflexes are intact. Grade 3 is unresponsive to pain, spontaneous motor activity is absent, brain stem reflexes depressed, motor tone, respiration and temperature are decreased. Grade 4 is unresponsive to pain, flaccid paralysis, brain stem reflexes and respiration is absent, cardiovascular vital signs are decreased. Disconcordant physiological status seen in asphyxiant, CNS syndromes and membrane activity. So in these patients, the patient may be in a bad situation but they are able to respond well. So we have to be very careful of these agents. And other way around, they have a normal physiological status. Now coming to the lab assessment. There may be increased anion gap or decreased anion gap depending upon the patient. So methanol, ethanol and salicylates, they produce an increased anion gap. Drugs that cause hepatic renal insufficiency, renal failure, seizures or shock cause increased anion gap. Decreased anion gaps may be seen in bromides, calcium, iodide, lithium or magnesium. Hypoglycemia, blood sugar test bedside, insulin, beta blockers, ethanol, oral hypoglycemic agents, quinine and salicylates. Hyperglycemia seen in acetone, beta agonists, caffeine, calcium channel blockers, iron. Hypokalemia may be seen in barium, beta agonists, caffeine, diuretics. Hyperkalemia seen in alpha agonists, cardiac glycosides and fluorine. Hypocalcemia in ethylene glycol, fluoride and oxalate. And prothrombin time with INR, it is increased in rodenticide, poisonings and warfarin. This is very important, very significant. In the ECG, you may get bradycardia and AV block, commonly seen with alpha agonists, antiarrhythmics, beta blockers, calcium channel blockers, digoxin, oral phosphorus compounds, lithium. QRS prolongation, QRS and QT prolongation may be seen in hyperkalemia, various antidepressants. Ventricular tachyarrhythmias can be seen in digoxin, fluorides and methylxanthines. Coming to the radiological evaluation, ARDS can be seen in carbon monoxide poisoning, cyanide, opioid, paraquat, etc. Now this paraquat is very interesting because if the patient comes with low oxygen, only then you are supposed to put on oxygen supplement. Paraquat poisoning causes increase. If you give supplemental oxygen, there is a formation of free oxygen radicals which may cause more lung disease. So only if hypoxia is documented, only then the patient is put on oxygen supplementation or ventilatory support. Patient may have aspiration pneumonia, commonly seen with coma, seizures and petroleum distillates. Chest X-ray has to be done, metal fume fever or mercury can be seen. Abdominal X-ray and CT abdomen, these two tests are also done, and in this you can see the opaque densities, ingestion of calcium salts, chloral hydrate, chlorinated hydrocarbon, heavy metals, drug packets, iodinated compounds, potassium salts, entry-coated tablets or salicylates. These all cause opaque densities and can be seen on abdominal X-ray or CT abdomen. Toxicological analysis. So you take the blood, send it for toxicological analysis. Urine, gastric aspirate, and beware of the poisons that have active metabolites. This is very significant. And rule out false positive and false negative tests. Once again, beware of poisons having active metabolites. Use of antidotes may be diagnostic. If the picture is not clear, you can use antidotes as a trial. Give dextrose for hypoglycemia, flumazenil for benzodiazepine and naloxone for benzodiazepine overdose. Now coming to the principle of treatment, support the vital signs. Prevention of further absorption, enhancement of poison elimination, administration of specific antidotes, prevention of re-exposure. You have to give supportive care to the patient, so you always have to do airway protection, treatment of seizures, maintain the oxygenation and ventilation, correction of temperature. Normally some patients come with hyperthermia or hypothermia, you have to correct the temperature, and treatment of arrhythmias, correction of metabolic derangements, and hemodynamic support, prevention of secondary complications. You have to prevent the further absorption, gastrointestinal decontamination and decontamination of other sites. So how do we proceed with the gastrointestinal decontamination? Do a gastric lavage, use activated charcoal, whole bowel irrigation, and dilution or endoscopic surgical removal may be required. Other sites, eye decontamination by washing, skin decontamination to change the clothes, and body cavity evacuation, especially if there are some special packets kept inside. Enhancement of poison elimination can be done by various ways: multiple dose activated charcoal, alteration of urinary pH, chelation, extracorporeal removal, which can be done achieved by hemodialysis, hemoperfusion, hemofiltration, plasmapheresis exchange transfusion, and hyperbaric oxygenation. You can give administration of antidotes, neutralization by antibodies, neutralization by chemical binding, metabolic antagonism, physiological antagonism, and we have to prevent of re-exposure. So we need to educate the adults, child proofing, notification of regulatory authorities, psychiatric referral is all compulsory so that they do not repeat it again. Approach to the patient. You have to secure an IV line, check the oxygen saturation, do the cardiac monitoring, continuous observation of the patient, bedside investigations such as lab investigations, ECG, X-ray has to be done, glucose has to be